Hello, welcome to Outside Xbox. I'm Mike, and I want to tell you a little story about the first and only time a video game has ever made me cry. And it's not the video game you'd think. It's not that bit in Final Fantasy VII. It's not even when my ex-girlfriend accidentally deleted my Final Fantasy VII save. I was remarkably chill about that in the circumstances. No, the game that made me cry was Microsoft Flight Simulator, the 2021. Yes, a simulation game made me cry. But to explain why, I need to tell you a little bit about my dad. You see, my dad was a pilot, not a professional one, but he had a private pilot's license, and he used to fly light aircraft, like Cessnas, out of Denham Aerodrome just outside London. The thing is, when I arrived, it was a difficult hobby to keep up. Kids are expensive and time-consuming, so instead of flying for real, he used to play Microsoft Flight Simulator, flying Cessnas out of Chicago Meigs Field, the same sort of plane that he'd flown back when he was at university. It was pretty rudimentary stuff, but about as close as you could get to the real thing at the time. My dad was diagnosed with cancer when I was about 14 or 15, and he died when I was just 17 years old. I know Microsoft Flight Sim offered him a load of comfort in those last few years. Fast forward to 2019, and I'm sitting in the Microsoft conference when they announce 2020's Flight Simulator, and they run the trailer, and it's just jaw-droppingly beautiful. And there in the room with Phil Spencer, I start crying. Big old tears rolling down my cheeks because it looked stunning and he would have loved it. It's funny how even decades later those emotions can well up inside you. The sort of stuff you had to imagine when you were squinting at the pixels in those older versions was rendered in exquisite detail, and they had managed to fit the entire planet into this game and render it in a sort of appropriate way. And because it had the entire planet, although I never got to fly with my dad, I got to head to Denham Aerodrome and fly the sort of planes he used to fly in real life and experience sort of a fraction of what he must have experienced. Fast forward again to a few months ago, and Microsoft invited me to the Grand Canyon to experience the new flight simulator game, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Now, you may know that my interest is mainly in racing games, but because of that connection to my dad, I've always had a fondness for Flight Sim, particularly the new version, and because of that, I felt like I really had to take this opportunity. So that's how I found myself at the Grand Canyon, one of the most spectacular locations on the planet, in order to make the comparison between that and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024's digital recreation. It's the sort of invitation you only offer to people if you're pretty confident in how your game looks. This is one of the wonders of the natural world, genuinely breathtaking to witness in real life, so you've got a tough job making the digital version look good by comparison. And yet, I came away really impressed by Flight Sim 2024's representation of the Grand Canyon. Although to be fair, I was travelling at about Mach 1 at the time, so I wasn't exactly scrutinising every inch of terrain. Although I did get a pretty good look at the ground just then. The reason they're so proud of it is to do with the 2024 edition's improved technology. Back when I first saw the trailer for the 2020 version at E3 2019, I thought the level of detail was impressive considering the game encompassed the entire planet. But according to the studio, this game is 4,000 times more detailed. That's most notable in detail on the ground itself, whereas in the 2020 version large portions of terrain were just flat surfaces and you could land almost anywhere. The 2024 version has massively more granular ground detail, and you don't even need to get perilously close to crashing to appreciate the visual improvement. As I mentioned, I'm pretty much as casual a flight sim fan as you might get.
I don't have any interest in recreating a transatlantic night flight on an Airbus A380 unless I can also be eating pretzels, drinking a miniature bottle of wine and watching the latest Jason Statham movie at the same time, preferably in premium economy or higher. But Flight Sim 2024 is arriving into a universe where 15 million people have played the previous game, and it turns out loads of them, like me, are casuals. So in addition to hardcore sim heads, this game is built with casual fans in mind, in a few very important ways. First is an increased emphasis on bite-sized challenge content with preset locations and aircraft, like, for example, flying a fighter jet through the Grand Canyon. This was definitely the thing that consumed the majority of my limited time with the game, trying over and over again to improve my score on the weekly challenges leaderboard. No pre-flight checks to worry about, just grab the controls and fly exciting things around. Just what my microscopic attention span ordered. Having successfully landed a chopper on top of a helipad on a lighthouse on the south coast of England, I'm really keen to see what kind of weird and wonderful missions the developers cook up for their weekly challenges. I'm hoping it'll give me an ongoing highlight reel of the vast amount of aircraft and whole globe's worth of interesting environments. The other exciting thing for casual players is a new career mode, which adds some much needed structure to a sandbox that can seem completely overwhelming on a planetary scale. In a neat touch, the career mode is entirely procedural, and as a result allows you to begin the campaign from any non-international airfield. So, like my dad, I was able to start my journey in aviation at Denham Aerodrome, just outside London. The reason this career mode is brilliant for someone like me is that it's intelligently teaching you how to fly increasingly complex aircraft without you having to sit through endless tutorials. I want to play a game, not do my homework, and regardless of whether it's a bit of clever smoke and mirrors, I was successfully fooled into enjoying the process via the career mode.
What of you? I recognize almost everything below.
It's also built for casual players on a technical level too, if you can believe it. As the installation size for Flight Sim 2020 grew bigger and bigger with more and more detailed terrain packs, I'm guilty of having deleted its 100 plus gigabytes of files to make room on my Xbox for games with more guns and explosions in them. For Flight Sim 2024, more elements of the game can be streamed direct from the cloud as you play, which means fewer enormous terrain pack downloads and an initial game download of just 23 gigabytes. You'll want to set aside a bit more space for a cache, maybe 30 gigabytes or so, but it's a massive improvement for people who might otherwise struggle to find space for the game. There are hundreds of other new additions to the game that serious Flight Sim fans will be in raptures over, from an improved flight physics model, to non-rigid body aircraft like hot air balloons, to every glider airfield on the planet, to improved avionics, to more animals to spot on the ground. For me though, basic as I am, it was those casual elements that meant the hours I spent with the game flew by, both literally and figuratively.
Pull up.
But the most magical moment of the trip was the opportunity to fly a light aircraft for myself, for real, for the first time.
The plane itself was a considerable upgrade over the sort of Cessna you'd usually start with. Instead, it was a Cirrus Vision jet, a multi-million-dollar jet with all sorts of clever technology, including an emergency auto-land system and, if things get really bad, a full airframe parachute. Neither of which I was hoping to have to use.
Up here I got a parachute, right? The cap's handle, the safety pin's been removed, so it's armed and ready to rock if we had a problem. I can basically look here, the radar altimeter, it's called a RADAL, right? It's going to tell me my altitude above ground at all times. As long as I'm 600 or greater, I can use that parachute.
Cirrus's in-house pilot Justin was clearly confident enough in the supreme safety of the Vision jet that he was happy to hand the controls over to me and let me fly the damn thing. With my reputation.
So push the red button right there, and that's going to disconnect the autopilot. So your hand flying. So come back my way just a little bit. That's actually a fairly good bank angle to head towards the airport. See how that works? Come back to wings level. I'm gonna let you make a quick turn to the right 30 degrees. And back to the left 30, as fast as you can get us over there. Gotta be careful when you tell these gamers to say, they'll throw this yoke right on over. Right? So, that's awesome.
Honestly, I don't think I could have dreamed up a more incredible place and aircraft to experience flying a plane for the first time. The sun was starting to go down, so the light was spectacular across the Grand Canyon, and the jet itself was phenomenally user-friendly for a vehicle so complicated. Even wilder still, Justin let me sit alongside him for the landing, even allowing me to throttle back to help set the plane down on the runway. The entire thing was an unforgettable experience.
Gears down, flaps down, clear to land on runway 21. So we're looking really good here. There's 2 red and 2 white, so now we bring the power back up to about 30% power. That'll pull us to the runway. It's like a tractor beam just pulling us straight at the 1,000-foot markers there, right? So you got the right amount of power so that we're not sinking, and you're using pitch to control airspeed. So you're doing about 90 knots here.
Yep.
We want to end up being around 80. So we're going to bring the nose up a half a degree and power back 5%. And watch what happens. That airspeed is just going to start to bleed back a little bit here.
Yep.
And we nose up a 1/2 a degree again. Feel the sink.
Yep.
There he goes. A gusty day. We're looking great here. Gears down, flaps down, clear to land. Speed looks good. Just bringing it right on in here. So we're just, don't touch that throttle yet. When I tell you, you're going to pull it to idle.
Okay.
Almost there. We get to the threshold right here. Pull it all the way back to full idle. And we pull the stick a little bit. Pulling the stick one more time. And we just let the wheels just kind of freeze right there and let the wheels just roll on the runway.
Amazing.
Amazing!
Well
Nice
For me, this really felt like closing the loop. I was flying an aircraft over one of the world's most spectacular locations. A bit like that trailer in 2019, he would have loved it.
And while my dad isn't around to enjoy Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, it makes me happy to think of it bringing joy to millions of people like him all around the world.
So thank you for watching my little story. Thank you to Microsoft for inviting me to experience this stuff for real, and for Microsoft Flight Simulator in general. 2024 is looking really, really good. And Dad, this one's for you.